customers to know exactly how to interact with your product or with your outlet for you to be able to make sales or for you to be able to get these customers on board to patronize your business. Basically, that's like it's a very, very simple way of putting it. But yeah.
Right, thank you very much. So I'm going to ask a question considering the fact that you have this platform. So what were the things you put into consideration when you were trying to build your marketing team? Did you think that, because I'm a startup, let me just get a one-man team? Or did you put together a proper structure for your marketing team?
First of all, I'd like to say that I don't have a marketing team. And I'll explain. So every person on my team are marketers. And what that means is they live, speak, breathe, sleep, eat the brand. They are all brand ambassadors. You know, they say with your company, the best people that will sell your company are your brand ambassadors. So when I started Navi, I felt that I knew that other influencers, you know, especially because we wanted to first get into the social media space because we're in lifestyle, we're in hospitality. We knew there were so many influencers that we were not going up against, but people were already following. How do we make our mark, right? So I knew that my brand, first of all, it's speaking to tourists, we are speaking to hospitality clients, we have to be professional. Our brand has to be something that goes across not only Lagos or Nigeria, it goes across, if I one day see my brand as something across Africa, I want it to go across other people as well, culturally, you know, so people should be able to understand it, regardless of which culture, which country they are, it should stick. So that's why even the name is short, it's something that sticks. So those are the few things I started with. Then of course the branding itself, the design. I was we were very intentional with our logo, for example. We knew that, for example, Navi itself comes from the word navigation. You know, we're trying to get people to navigate through these beautiful African cities. And then we thought, okay, Navi, what do we do with it? What kind of logo would stick? So we decided, let's go with a compass. That's something that people eventually, the community that we're building would also wear that compass and feel proud wearing it because they would be guides, you understand? So we were very intentional from the beginning about how we wanted these small things. The logo itself took me about 2 months to come up with, but these small things make a big impact. Your colors, for example. Are your target audience, are they luxury clients? Are they you know, youth? Are they aged between 30 to 50? You have to understand what colors actually represent your brand as well. I think that also speaks volume. A company, if you're a luxury brand, slapping a red or one color like yellow might not exactly appeal to the audience that you're speaking to. So those are the small things that we did to start off with the marketing process, basically.
So one thing I take out of this is what you said, when you don't have a marketing team, every individual in your company is a marketer. I would like to know your thoughts about that. And it's coming from the fact that you had the opportunity to work across all industries. How does that play at your side?
I think you're right. I mean, fundamentally, everybody carries the company on their back. Everybody is an ambassador. And once you sign a contract, an employment contract with the company, you already know that you need to live and breathe the values of that company. And that you need to carry the company on your head to the point where you're in any situation where you can sell that company. You need to be able to quickly do it, regardless of whether you're in anything, whether you're in operations or finance or customer success or marketing or product or engineering or whatever, right? Once you're associated with the company, you need to be able to sell that company every opportunity you get. And you need to also carry yourself in a way that brings value or honor, if you like, to that company, so that people can see the kind of company that the company that places through you. That said, however, I think that there's also the need within the team for people whose job really is customer acquisition and retention, and people who are constantly on the day-to-day, whose bread and butter, whose work really is looking at how many customers are coming, how many of them are staying, what are the challenges that they have, what's the product like, how does it speak to what the customer needs. how do we optimize this product to acquire more customers, how do we get this customer to stay, how do we get them to spend their money, how do we do this, how do we do all of that. I think that at that very granular level, when it comes to actually dealing with these little super important things, you need somebody or a team to actually manage that entire process end to end, which is where the need for a marketing team comes in. Like I said earlier though, there are some people who are multiple who say, I can see people.
Yes.
There are some people who are so talented that anywhere you put them, they will swim, you know. And those kinds of people end up in early stage, super early stage businesses or startups, where they end up being the guys who are properly managing. And I also want to say that based on my experience, there's a slight difference between when you're a marketing person at a traditional company and when you're a marketing person at a startup. Because startups, by their very nature, are super experimental, right? And in coming up with and running those experiments, you have a lot of agency as a person, as a marketing person, in startups. That's not to say that every startup follows that template. I'm just saying that generally, when you compare legacy businesses or whatever with businesses that are startups, that are tech businesses or whatever, that are trying to solve some problems very quickly and are raising money and this and that, there's a slight difference between how the marketing teams operate. Maybe we'll get there today, maybe we won't. But the idea is, at some point in the lifestyle of your, or in the life cycle of your business, you need to get to the point where you have people, or one or a couple of people, depending on the size and the level that your business is at, you have people whose job it is to just sit down and manage and dig into that marketing part of the business and just manage it end to end.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we are saying essentially that yes, everyone is expected to be a marketer if you are working at a startup. But at some point in your business, you need to then create people that specify or specifically attend to that particular event, which is the market. So yes, everybody is expected to be an employee. It's expected that if you sign a dotted line, unconsciously or consciously, you become a marketer for that business. However, as the business evolves and the team becomes larger and things begin to expand, you can then say, okay, let me have a specific marketing team to deal with. Now that has been settled, one question that I would like to ask is, how do you then source for? We move beyond making everybody a marketer now, and you want to create a marketing team for your startup. I think the first question we should ask is, how do you find your startup? Right? Because we all have different interpretations of startup, right? How do we define a startup? That's the first question. And then what do you consider when you are sourcing for people to occupy the marketing team or the marketing department as it were? How do you define startup first?
Thank you very much. The definition of what a startup is by the book is a little bit up in the air, right? But basically, when you think startup, what you are thinking is a company, maybe not a company, a business, maybe even not a business, an idea that is solving a unique problem, deploying technology, and solving it in a super fast and super efficient way that is different from what a legacy company would do. So typically, the structure of startups are very lean teams that are deploying technology in the solution of a specific problem in society, right? And they are not doing it, they are raising money. So they have, I like to say that in the lifestyle of a startup, you typically go through, and I'll quickly run through it, you typically go through maybe like four funding rounds, depending on how well you're doing. So you have an idea, right? I'll break it down a little bit. You have an idea, and you think that, oh, I want to build this idea out, and I think that this thing can actually have and be a solution to one problem that I've noticed in my environment or whatever. It's just, at this point, this is just you, you're just one person, just having this idea. And you call one of your friends who you know that, or maybe you write it out first, you write it out to sort of figure out, write out all your thoughts and your plans and everything. You call one of your friends who you know that is an engineer or a software developer or whatever. You call him and you're like, I've noticed this problem, I think we can solve it in this way, but I've written down these things, what do you think? You guys sort of just hash it out. then you realize that you actually need a bit of money, that you cannot maybe fund it by yourself, right? So you go to your first funding round, which is essentially a friend and family round. That's what it's called. And what that means is that you go to people that know you. You don't have a business at this point. You have an idea on paper, right? You go to people who know you, who know that you are diligent and that you are efficient, and that you have the character and the attitude to sort of try to see this through. And you ask them to give you money in exchange for some equity in whatever idea it is or the business that you are trying to build. So you go to your daddy or to your mommy or to your uncle or to one of your friends or whatever, you collect small money, maybe they give you $2,000 or $1,000 or something like that. Maybe 10 people give you $1,000 or 20 people give you $500 or whatever. You raise your first round. And then to these guys, you assign maybe 2% or 1% equity, that kind of thing, in that idea. Then you go ahead and register the business. Then you start building out what you think the core of that business, which is essentially to start out with engineering, right? You start thinking that, okay, how do we test this solution that I have to this idea? And try to see whether the market will actually even be open to it, right? So, you and your friends start out, you send out some ideas or whatever, you try to figure out what the market wants. You begin to pour new surveys or whatever of your audience or your potential customers or whatever. You get to a point where you are seeing some good reception, in that you are doing some alpha testing or some beta testing and you are getting some good feedback regarding people are actually using this product. At this point, maybe they are not even paying you yet, but they are using the product. And you are observing that they are getting some traction and some numbers in. And then you think, okay, now we need more money to scale this into more people. Because we now run the test. Let's try to open it up to a lot more, a lot bigger audience and see what happens, right? So you need some more money. So you go to maybe venture capitalists. Actually, at this point, you are speaking with angel investors. Because angel investors are essentially people who have money, who can give you some significant money in exchange for equity in your business. But these people don't necessarily know you like that, right? But they can see that you have a business that has a bit of traction. It's not a lot, it's not humongous, but they can see that you are doing something right. And maybe you've been growing month on month at maybe 5% or 10% or whatever. They see that there are future to the business. So they give you some money. You raise the seed round. Maybe you close another $50,000, maybe $100,000 in the seed round, right? Then you start building it. You go out and open to a lot more people. Now you are not testing really. You are trying to get to the point where you are doing the business or running the service and scale, right? Don't forget that it's super important to have technology. That's what really makes you a tech startup. Otherwise, you are just a business, which is fine. Every business cannot be a startup. But at the end of the day, you still need marketing, right? And marketing is what's going to drive your business from that early stage when you are raising a friends and family. I'm going to complete that, or maybe we can have a conversation another time. Because I think it's a bit long. Yeah. But yes, marketing is super important for every stage of the business, from the very beginning when you have the idea to the very end when you IPO or when you exit by sale or whatever you do.
So to add to what Michael was saying, I think aside from all of that and having a startup and going to VC and all of that, when you're expanding your team, especially your marketing team, you have to understand with startups, and I found this difficult. When we didn't really know what our vision was and we didn't have any structure, it was very difficult for me to hire people. Because people have to believe in what you're selling and what your product is. And that's what I meant by brand ambassadors. The core team that we hired from last year when we started, these guys are still with us. Why? Because they bought into an idea, they bought into a vision of what we were trying to do. And that, again, ties back into your employer branding. You understand? If you don't have a brand, people are very visual. They want to see something that they believe in and something that they will carry on their back and feel proud of. So, like I said, we spend a lot of time. I know I keep going back to branding, but I really feel startups, especially founders, we need to understand that it is very important. You know, we're talking about the importance of marketing teams and all. It's not just going on and telling people, well, this is my product, this is my service. How do you stay different? Okay, if you're in an industry where you're, like, for example, the fintech industry, and you've got hundreds and thousands of different startups just like you, how do you stay different from them? It starts with your branding, it starts with your vision. What is it that what is your USP? And then accordingly, using that, creating a sort of DNA, cultivating it to the people that are coming into your business, and then they do the same. People join in. How do we hire people? I think that's it down into steps. Your employer branding, onto platforms like the job search platforms, finding out where can you actually get, where do these marketers, the communications guys, the copywriters, where do they actually go, and which job boards do they go to find jobs, Third, I think with how on LinkedIn, you can find people very easily on LinkedIn. You'll be shocked. And I actually love LinkedIn because as a marketer, as somebody that communicates themselves, if they don't know how to communicate themselves on LinkedIn, that's a problem itself. Because these are the guys that you're depending to communicate your brand. So even if you can't afford an SEO or growth person or all those really technical tools in the beginning of your startup, you can hire someone that can communicate your brand very well. Whether it's a copywriter or even a graphic designer, if those two people know how to communicate your brand and results well, I think you've done a very good job. So LinkedIn is also a very good way of getting people and word of mouth, tapping into your network.
There's specific skill you look out for when you're trying to complete your marketing. There's like a specific skill, and this is putting into consideration that some people here are also looking to join marketing teams, startups, and not just startups, but also multinational companies. What is that specific skill, or if not, maybe 1 to 3 skills that person should have to be considered when we recruit them?
I think for me, as a tech founder, what I always look for is your communication skills. If you know how to communicate, that's very, very important. The type of language you use. Like I said, it ties into the type of startup that you're also going to be working for, or the type of startup that you are. If you see yourself as a brand that is not going, or a company that's not going to expand outside of Lagos or outside of Nigeria, then that's fine. That's up to you, right? And you're speaking to the Nigerian market. But if you're looking to be a company that's going to be expanding across Africa, across the globe one day, your communications team needs to be able to communicate across all these different cultures, across all these different people, and they should be able to buy into your brand. So it should be, let's say, global, I think, or international, Someone who knows how to communicate is very good. Secondly, is creativity. How can this person sell your brand or communicate your brand or company differently from everybody else? And you can't, when you're a founder, you can't always have the time to do that for your team. You can't always be the one pitching. Your team should be able to come up with the creativity to do that. You understand? So that's what I think.
Just to also add, to extend our response a little bit, I think that it's not just for founders. Sometimes you are just leading a team. You are senior marketing manager, or you are head of marketing, or you are marketing manager, and a startup that is only just 4 people, and they rely on you to set up a marketing team for that company. I've been in that situation 3 times in my career, and it was important for me to first understand the kind of company that we're trying to build and the kind of channels that we're looking to leverage at different points. And then important for me to then sort of define what the team would look like and what kind of skills I needed, or what kinds of aspects of marketing that I needed to be able to move the company from where it was to where we needed to get to. It's not every time that you are bootstrapping. It's not every time that you don't have money, or there's no money to hire a team or whatever. Sometimes you have money and they've hired you as head of marketing and they expect that set up the team, tell us how many people you need, tell us how much their salaries will be, tell us what skills they need to have, and tell us how that adds to what the company needs to achieve over the next 1 year or whatever, right? And as a head of marketing or as a marketing manager or whatever, you need to be able to look at the company and look at what you're trying to achieve and break it down into different responsibilities. So you look at what you're trying to do, like, okay, we need a creative person who's going to be in charge of like creatives, ads, flyers, posters, banners, whatever. For both digital and non-digital, we need that person to also have like video editing skills, or maybe to be able to play around with Canva or with whatever it is, right? So you think, okay, let's hire a creative person who's going to be in charge of that creative space. Then you look at it now, is community building a huge part of what you are trying to do? If it is, if you have a community...
Sorry guys. Please, thank you very much. Thank you.
If you have a community building strategy, and you know that community building is going to be part of what you're trying to do, you look around and you create like another maybe social media management or community management. They are two different things, but in many ways, for many startups, they can be together because the same people, a lot of times, have like both the same skills, right? So community management, social media management, you want to also isolate that particular skill set and say, okay, I need somebody who has both community building skills and social media management skills, right? And then you also look at it and you're like, okay, are we going to be running ads on our customers online? Are we going to be doing any paid digital marketing? If you're going to be doing paid digital marketing, you need somebody who can handle paid digital, right? Who can be super efficient in spending as little money as possible to get you as many customers as can help you meet the target that you have or that you have set for yourself as a head of marketing. So you need to have that. Are you going to be doing content marketing, right? Because this is also becoming a huge thing. And I think that is one of the most underrated kinds of marketing that exists today. Because content marketing itself can drive your business from 0 to 100. And it's pretty low level, not cheap, but super affordable for most startups. So do you need a content writer? Do you need a content person? Do you need a content strategist or whatever? Is that important to what you are trying to achieve as a company? If it is, then you hire a content strategist. Now you've got a team that has maybe 4 or 5 people. You've got the creative guy, you've got the social media management person, you've got the paid digital person who will be in charge of your digital channels and ads and all of that. You've got a content strategist. Now you then look at it. I want us to be doing what I call offline marketing, right? Offline marketing is essentially non-digital. It's a lot of hacking things, just going on the road and speaking to people or getting PSAs to enter into a market and sort of selling products or whatever. It depends on the product that you're supposed to be marketing really. So if you are going to have a content marketing if you are going to have an offline marketing, traditional marketing thing, you can also think about hiring someone to also man that particular aspect of the marketing team. So again, it depends on where you are, what kind of resources that you have available to you, what kind of things are priority to your business or to the business that you're working at, what your goals and targets and challenges are, or what your goals and targets and KPIs are, where you want to see, where you hope for the company to be, and that's going to determine how you then structure out the kind of skills or the kind of professionals that you look for to manage all these different things. This is assuming that you already have a budget that budget is not a constraint.
Thank you. So we are saying that two typical skills that people look out for when they are recruiting for the marketing team: communication skill and creativity. And the particular question I also like to address is, considering it's a startup, do we look out for marketers or people in the marketing team that understand both digital and traditional, no matter the type of startup it is, or do we just recruit, and this is specifically for startups, considering the fact that you are employing people that wear multiple hats, right? When you are looking to recruit one person, are you saying that, this person has to have some understanding of both digital and traditional media, so that when they are marketing, I think they have basic understanding? Or do you just recruit that, I am recruiting for digital and I am recruiting for traditional? How does that work? At what point do you then separate, considering that it's a startup and not a fully, you understand? Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So to answer your question directly, I would say that it's not advisable to do that, but in some cases you can find yourself in such situations, and you have people who can handle themselves when they are in the traditional space, and who also understand digital. It's very rare, but sometimes they find such people, right? And I think that a lot of times the things that you need to do to succeed in traditional marketing is very dissimilar from the things that you need to do to succeed in digital marketing, because the audiences are different. And if you are building in Africa where a ton of your customers are offline, right, then they are not on Twitter or on Facebook. People on Facebook say, maybe a bunch of them are on Facebook, but at some point you will need to be able to, and this is where I'm really going, is that at some point in the lifestyle of your business, you will need to be able to tie what's happening offline to what's happening online to be able to get the best results out of that. That's not to say that it needs to be the same person who's doing both. This is where the function of the team itself comes in, right? And you as the team need to be able to look at, well, as a founder, you need to be able to look at the strategies that you have for traditional and think about how that ties into digital so that you are able to connect, so that you are speaking the same things and you are following the same goals and you are able to connect the activities on the digital side to activities on the traditional side. Why I would advise for you to hire the same person? Because sometimes the people that you need for traditional marketing, depending on your business, people that you need for traditional marketing are people who are spending a lot of time on the streets, right? Depending on your, even they themselves will not be digital people at all. I've been in such a situation before where you needed somebody to marshal, to go into parks, to terminals, and just get people. They did not have a Twitter account, they did not have an Instagram account, they did not have a Facebook account. Their Facebook account was super common, right? But when they entered into the loophools, they could get people to put out of their hands. Right? You find such people and they are super efficient, but you don't want to be in a space where you are thinking that it must be the same person, such that you miss out on such kinds of talent because they really help you move your business along.
So I think it's very clear that as a marketer or someone who plans to work at the marketing department, you should clearly define what exactly it is that you want to do. Do you want to work in digital, or do you want digital department, or do you want to help service traditional? So when you're signing the dotted lines, or when you're being recruited, one of the questions you need to clarify is if they're employing you for both platforms, or if they're employing you for just one platform, so you're not doing the job of 17 people at the same time.
Just to quickly also add that I think that when you call yourself a growth person, right, there's an expectation, which is very justifiable and fair, that from a high level perspective, you understand what it takes to succeed on digital channels and what it takes to succeed on non-digital channels, right? I'll give you an example. The previous place where I worked before now, we hired a guy, and to be honest with you guys, if I were the one who interviewed that guy, I would not have hired him. But he was hired before me. Right? So when they hired me to lead the team, the day that I signed my employment contract, my boss just said, "Oh, that's your first direct report." I'm like, "Why are you hiring people for me?" Like, it threw me off a little bit, but when they gave me that direct, they sent me his LinkedIn, and I looked through the guy's LinkedIn. He only had digital skills. They had done a few Google trainings here and there, and it was not. I was like, wait a minute. And then when they sent me his assessment, because they had sent him an assessment to do. Or the company is trying to launch this one, that one, give us a few ideas as to how you will go about it, blah, blah, blah. When they sent me that assessment, and I looked at it, and I went to be this nonsense. Do you get it? But they had hired him, so I needed to work with it at that point. So yeah, I was on the same day, and I remember sitting in there and having a conversation with him, like, what are you really trying to achieve in your career? You know, and he told me that he wanted to learn traditional marketing, that he understands digital, that he can run Google Ads and optimize them for performance and this and that on Facebook and this on Twitter, but he wanted to really understand how to deploy digital marketing and traditional marketing to achieve business goals. So he wanted to understand things like how to set up billboards or who to talk to get billboards set up, how to run experiments that do not have digital elements to them, how to go out into the streets and get people to do things, how to do radio ads, how to set up radio jingles or radio ads that speak to specific audience that you're trying to reach, and how to position them to ensure that the audience are being reached at the right time, how to do like posters and banners and make sure that these things are, how to do like road shows and ensure that those things are helping you to actually make business goals. So I said, okay. So we started working, and by the time I was leaving the company, he was hired as so the company had like senior associate, supervisor, and manager, the bank, right? He was hired as a senior associate. The folks that I hired to form the marketing team, the rest of the team, were hired as supervisors, right? By the time I was leaving the company, about 18 months or 20 months after I joined, that guy, who was senior associate, was the manager that I was handing over to manage the rest of the people who are hired as supervisors. And in my lifetime in that company, I would have performance reviews and I would sit down with each person and I'd explain to them that, look, this person is doing way more than me because they are so eager to learn these things that they said they wanted to come and learn. And and they are taking on more responsibilities within the team and within the office at large. They are doing a lot of other things. They are collaborating across departments in lots of other ways. That you people are just content. You that are a creative person, you are just content to continue to do your creative thing. You that are the community manager, you are just content to continue to sit down in your community manager space. And that's when people are being considered for promotion. So that the kind of things that they do that, like, what's the attitude of this person? How well have they worked outside of what they were hired to really do? Right? So my point with that conversation is that guy today is doing excellent work. He has also left that place where he works together. He's doing excellent work both in the offline space and in the digital space as a marketing manager in one of the fintech startups in Nigeria today. Every time the person that hired me calls me because they asked me for a recommendation after I left and I put him on, every time they talk to me, they always say, he's doing good work, he's doing a lot of excellent work for us and all of that. He's somebody who has mastered the digital side of things, also mastered the traditional side of things, and has been able to understand how both work and combine both to manage marketing and customer acquisition for different companies. You know what I mean? So while I'm not advising that you as the founder hire the same person to do that, you as a professional need to have an idea, especially because the higher you go in your career. I always say to people that I work with that you are not going to be a content strategist forever. There's a limit to how high you can rise as a content marketing person. Papa, you become head of content marketing. Right? Or maybe you are a creative person and you are creative lead, you're creative director, Papa, you become creative director. If you want to move into a marketing manager role, or you want to move into a CMO role, or you want to move into a VP of marketing role or whatever, all these other skills you will need to have them, or at least have an idea how they work, how to put them to work into the achievement of goals for the company. You will need to have them because when you become VP of marketing, or you become head of marketing or whatever, you are managing different kinds of channels. And all these channels need to be optimized, and you people before they hire yourself, you need to show the mastery of all these different concepts. So if you sit down in your content marketing space and you say, I just want to be a content marketer, and you continue to be a content marketer, maybe that's not a bad thing, right? Because you can be content marketer, for instance, you can be content marketing manager for maybe Coca-Cola at global level. But for you to step into a head of marketing or a CMO role, there are certain things that you need to learn, that you need to know. My point is, knowing one skill is not just enough. Being a god at one skill is just not enough. There's a certain level you will get to where for anybody to take a chance on you, to take you to another higher level, you need to be able to explain, you need to have a good grasp or a good understanding of how these other skills work to tie into marketing and customer acquisition for that company. And you need to be able to explain before people are able to give you a chance to actually spend it.
Thank you very much. So we are saying that as a Twitter or it's not advising for you to one individual person to handle both digital marketing and traditional or we are looking to go beyond that. So looking for those skills. So please, as a marketer, yes, you want to do that as a content person, you need to be able to explore other forms of channel and know how that can help you with your career goals. I have this particular question for you. And that is, what are the challenges you face when putting together a marketing? I know you said you don't have, but what are the challenges you face?
What I meant was I don't have a traditional marketing team. I mean, of course we have the graphic and UI and communication. What are the challenges that I face? I think quite a few. But I think the biggest one was coming up with ideas. Yes, exactly, conceptualization. And I guess that's why I said communication and also communication, funny enough. Yeah, I think the language that I was looking for, in the way I wanted to put out my product and service, I think wasn't being communicated properly. The language wasn't there. And until today I find it difficult. Let me explain what I mean. I work in the hospitality industry. When you're talking about food, there needs to be some level of exposure about food. You have to know how to describe it. And there are a lot of people here, because that industry is although it's booming, and it's actually one of the fastest growing industries in the world, it's still very overlooked in terms of jobs. Most people think that if you're going to be in the hospitality industry, you end up either owning a restaurant or a hotel or spa, or you're going to be a waiter to work with it. But there's so much to hospitality, even in the tech side, right? Even in the creativity space. So even in advertising, how do people actually, like in terms of the hotels, what kind of videos are being put out there? What are the adverts that are being put out there? I don't see as much adverts about some of the big hotels over here, even the smaller ones. So who's doing this? And I think that's a market that it's yet been developed. And so finding the right communication, people that can talk about food, about service, about hospitality, about hotels, about the reception, all of these different services is difficult. It was difficult for me. And I had to, luckily because I worked in that industry for so long, I was able to train and say, this is how it's being portrayed. Even when you're talking to a customer online or a client online or social media, this is how it should be written. You understand this friendliness. Even as a hospitality tech company, we had to make sure that we had the right customer service, even through social media, when people are asking for requests and all of that. Then the creative part, because I think that also goes down to the kind of app that we're creating. And we're at the creative, it's about tourism, it's about those videos, about lifestyle and all of that. So coming up with those ideas would be very difficult for some of my team members when they were like, having to constantly come up with new concepts and also when you're working with so many different companies and different clients, if you're working with a restaurant versus working with the hotels, telling them it's two different things and their services are very different. So thinking about that and having a team come up with those concepts.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, just one big challenge we face together every month.
Yes, I think one of the biggest challenges that I've faced every week is the reverse of what she said, right? We have this really nice idea that management does not allow us to execute because for some reason they just don't want to go in that direction. And I think it's very frustrating for a lot of communities. You have this idea, you have this brilliant idea, you take it to your team, whatever, and you're like, oh, this is what I think we should do, this thing is going to blow people's mind, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And somebody comes and says, there's no money for this thing, but they tell you, we just don't think that it's the right thing to do. And in a lot of places, I've been able to down the consequences, sometimes spend my own money on my own pockets, just to make sure that we did some of the things that we did. But yes, that's one of the biggest problem, challenge that I've faced whilst setting up and managing.
Sorry, thank you very much. So, yes, thank you. Okay, so we're running out now. As we just like to have a final word from you. For those who are looking to join the marketing team and for founders, how just final word?
Maybe speak to founders.
Speak to those that.
Yes. Okay, great. So I think for founders, I think, I just want to go back to what I was saying in the beginning, your brand ambassadors. Please try to pay attention to them. Give them a platform where they can speak to you and communicate. Let them build that brand and that community with you. If you do that, they buy into it. They take ownership of it for your brand, for your company. And then it helps sell the product much more, I feel, easier. When they know when they're living, breathing, speaking your brand, and it's not just a job, it's because they are part of it. I feel that really helps. And marketing, as founders, it doesn't end with you. The brand doesn't end with you, or beginning and end with you. It also, and not also with your marketing team. It goes across your company. So every single person in your team should understand what your service is, should understand what your product actually does, and what your USP is. If otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. Don't let your marketing team be the only ones responsible for the communication of your company.
Right, for me, I'll speak to marketing professionals. And I know that if I ask people in this world, there's different elements or different aspects of marketing that people are good at. Right? Some people are great content people, like I said, some people are great this and great that. So great, awesome, excellent. That's how to start. But like I always say, if you want to grow to a certain extent, we need to learn how to manage other things that you are not so familiar with, right? We need to, if you're a content person, you need to learn a little bit about video editing, for instance, just as a random example. Because when you are head of marketing, You need to know how videos work, and you need to know what the editing person is doing, so that they can't bullshit you. You know, you need to be able to tell them that this thing that you're saying, don't be so you work. You know, but a lot of times people just sit down in their space and they just want to keep doing the same things and doing the same things. And you know, so at some point you need to break out of where you are comfortable and begin to learn other things. The combination of all these things in your talent or in your skill set is what makes you able to command more money and higher roles as you rise in your career. So that's really what the advice that I always give to people, that you break out of your comfort zone and do something else and learn how something else works. That's the alignment to what you are trying to achieve.
I just want to add something to that. I think this is my job and that's it. Try to be open enough to be flexible and learn all these different things. Saying that and speaking to the founders, be open to give your employees that opportunity. Don't refine or restrict them to do only one thing. Expand their boundaries. Tell them to learn things. Send them trainings. There's so many free trainings online. Even if it's not really like, for example, you're taking the content part. If it's not maybe video making or content creation, send them something about marketing. Send them something about communication. Let them learn how to describe something. I think if you do those small things, it really helps with their career. When you bring someone in as a team member, as part of the team, you have to make sure that they are not stagnant in one place. They have to grow with you, and they have to grow with your company. So that even if they leave you, and don't let, I feel that a lot of founders have this mentality that I don't really want to train. I saw even founders, it's generally in a lot of companies, I don't really want to invest in so much training or so much in their learning experience because I'm going to take that and go somewhere else. You want that. You want that when they leave you, that they're gone with something good and not with nothing. When they go to another company, they say, actually, I learned a lot from that and that's why I'm here. You know? So I think that's important too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for listening. If you have any questions or clarifications, please just raise your hand and
Questions? Please can you come forward, please?
Hello, my name is Moba. Yeah, so my company is like a bridge between companies and talent. I want to get this information from founders or business owners. What do founders mean, or what they really want when they want to? We find that there's this mix of words or writing issues between you have a small company or a small startup who really should be doing brand building, who's asking for accelerated growth. So, or when they say growth, they mean sales. So these people, so you have someone who comes in who says the skills, I'm a growth marketer, and they have growth hacking skills, they have, and then they get fun and they get to demand results that are directly tied to sales and the numbers. So I feel like I'm asking some people who are here, professionals, saying, how do you deal with it, or how do you explain to someone who hires you or who wants to hire you, who it feels like what they're saying or what you're getting is, this company wants more in brand building, or this company wants someone in sales, or they want someone in growth marketing. But because in Nigeria, to that extent, many companies are either spot on accelerated growth. It's more about awareness and growth numbers. So there's a lot. So how does someone do that distinguishing to say, you know what, I like this place, but I can't work with it because I've seen that what you need is sales. I'm a growth marketer, I can't do this. Yeah.
We're going to take 2 questions.
Thank you for an insightful session. So my question is 2-pronged. The first one is, like you said, you made mention of that at a certain stage, you find out that you peaked. Because you can't go beyond a certain level. Now, is it a right mindset to say, okay, you want to go off and start up your own business, considering the fact that you can no longer grow within a company? Then, if that's the case, what are your top 3 skills you recommend for transitioning from a marketing professional to a founder?
So my question is kind of like to, I guess, to founders in the sense that like when you're building a community, like within your business, and you're also trying to create a community, we are trying to create a community for your workers, like people who work with you, and you're trying to create a community for the people who are your target audience. Is that community necessarily the same, or would you share the same objectives with that community?
Do you get a question? Please.
So, in community building, right, you have like, obviously like there's the...
Are you speaking about internal and external?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
I got you.
Exactly. So the internal community being like your working environment, yes, and then the external community being your target audience. So when you're starting out, like, how do you manage those two worlds?
Are you asking how do you manage both your internal community as well as the external community side by side? Keeps you alive on a month-on-month basis that allows you to get to that exit stage that you are thinking about. So if what keeps you alive is understanding that the investor that are going to give us money to grow to the next level that takes us one step closer to our exit. What they need to see in our business is profitability, right? They don't need to see quality metrics. They don't need to see how many customers you have acquired. What they need to see is how many of them are actually bringing their money. What is your profit margin like? Because again, a lot of startups is construed what revenue means. Some people
Simon May is based in Kenya, but he is the collaborator of the year. Then, I'd like to say again for being a coaching champion of the year. That is the individual. And then look at the show for being excellent this year. Then next round. So every year, after the there are people who watch people and people, and essentially just ensure that every single plan that we have on the year is also paid. So this one is not from the community, this is from me to all the people who are getting this instead of our Presidential Excellence Award.
I said, innocent. Yeah, well, this. We have to do it.
Let's give them a round of applause.
So like this one personal awards to people who have been really amazing this year. So the Presidential Excellence Award to Amina Director, Victoria Arrangement, Ronald Adiboa.
Can we have Isaac one more time? Who else? Innocent? Please, let's have you back on stage. Yeah. Okay, please, Uche, let's have you. We go now. Please, Uche, certificate. Let's take the photograph. Mom, please join them in the photograph. Yeah, well, this is the video now. Then, please let's give another round of applause. This is commendable. Service is something that promoted and celebrated within our community and our society, and like I said.